I don't know. Say it with me. I don't know. Good God, it is liberating. I am a towering mountain of ignorance. I don't know. We're taught to believe that everything has a reason. And so we observe the world, we see what happened, and then we define the thing that happened as the reason the thing happened. But I think a lot of the time we end up mixing up thinking something with knowing something. This is why it can be so impossible to talk about certain topics with certain people. They've tied those suppositions to themselves so tightly with knots of narrative and constructed reality and values that there's just no untying it. And maybe unsurprisingly, in those situations, the best course of action is just to be friends. Maybe even ask them about that thing that they've created, because to them, it's immensely valuable. The world as we perceive it, as we've built it inside of ourselves, is a lie that we tell to ourselves, not out of deception, but out of necessity. We have no other choice. We simply cannot understand the world as it is, and so we construct. But sometimes I just have to tell myself the thing that is definitely true, the truest thing I can say, which is that I don't know.
Never know.
This is the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast with Bob Pondillo and Cass Midgley.
When you go from having just a fairy tale structure around you to having actual demonstrable, testable things you can look into and explain, I mean, it's an amazing feeling to first realize that.
Welcome everyone to episode 125 of the Everyone's Agnostic Podcast. I'm Cass Midgley. Today Bob and I converse with Tim Flynn of right here in Nashville. He was raised Southern Baptist in West Tennessee, but unlike some of us, was not good at the fake-it-till-you-make-it gambit to maintain his faith. Once he got his driver's license and some autonomy, he stopped going to church and never looked back. Tim realized relatively early in life that no matter how hard he tried to establish a personal relationship with Jesus, it just never took. And in so doing, he avoided years and even decades of tension and confusion and wrestling with doubts and trying to make the Christian narrative hold water, which, once conceded, is often followed by shame and embarrassment for taking so long to get honest. So Tim models a less painful way that one leaves their childhood faith, and we witness a snapshot of how many millennials are reacting to their inherited religion. His ability to trust his own common sense and be less prone to need something to be true when you know deep down that it's not, saved him from a lot of heartache. And we hear that in his calm, pleasant disposition. We taped this conversation on October 23rd, 2016. We hope to encourage people in the process of deconstructing their faith and help curb the loneliness that accompanies it. We think the world is a better place when more people live by sight, not by faith. Please subscribe to our podcast or give it 5 stars or leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps. Our show's available on most podcast platforms. Also, you can support us monetarily in many easy ways. You can pledge $1 per episode or more through Patreon. That's patreon.com/EA podcast. Or leave a lump sum donation through PayPal at our website, everyone'sagnostic.com. Let me just say here that I get an email or 2 or 3 every day from listeners of the show that greatly appreciate the show, and I love reading them. It would help us on a grander scale if you would post similar sentiments on the platform on which you listen to the podcast. iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn. If they have media where you can share comments, please do something there, as well as send me an email that would convey how you feel about our show. Our opening monologue is an excerpt from a YouTube by Hank Green titled Towering Mountain of Ignorance. The music behind it is Never Know by Jack Johnson. The segue music on this episode is by Sam Mayer. It was recorded on a handpan in the New York City subway. Thanks for listening, and be a yes-sayer to what is.
you from, Tim?
I'm originally from Jackson, Tennessee.
Okay.
So
All right.
West Tennessee, kind of, right along I-40 there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one of our stops. When we're heading to Oklahoma, it's a great stop because it's lots of stuff. And, and it's halfway to Memphis.
Yeah.
Right.
So if-
Absolutely.
A lot of restaurants there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's might be like the highest per capita, something like that.
Yeah.
And WBBJ, big,
they got
big,
WBBJ.
big TV station there, Channel 7.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of MTSU students go there. And
Yeah.
Isn't there a college?
Yeah, there's a few, actually. There's Union University.
Is that the one that was hit by the tornado?
That was. Yeah. That's a big Christian college there. There's Lambeth, Lane.
it was God's will.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my dad's actually, he's a fireman, and he helped do rescue on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was not a pretty sight from what he said.
It was very sad, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go to college?
Yes, I did. Been to college a few different times. So I started out at Jackson State Community College going for art major. Did that for about 3 years. Did a year at MTSU, so did 2 years Jackson State. Went at MTSU, then I went to Vec Tech School in Columbia, Tennessee. Did that for a couple years, started working for a few years in that field. Went back to school for biology at MTSU again. Did a bachelor's in biology with a concentration in biotech and a minor in chemistry.
Cool.
Wow.
Had a lot of, about
Scientific
8 or
guy.
9. Yeah, 8 or 9 years later, have a bachelor's and an associate's. So
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, very good. What are you doing now?
now I work at Service Source in an office job in downtown Nashville. So
Okay.
not a ton of biology stuff around here, but you kind of have to go on and do like masters or PhD stuff like that.
I didn't mention, or I forget to ask you, we're using your real name, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're out.
Totally.
You're out
Yeah.
and proud.
Yeah, out and proud. Talk about it on a daily basis, pretty much at work. What I try to do. My approach is, everybody intimately knows kind of my viewpoints.
That you're a vocal atheist.
I am a vocal atheist, and so my approach is kind of I just present, my outward face. I try to be a good person. Everything I do. Once I get to know a person, I kind of drop the A-bomb, I guess, and let them know, hey, the person that you've been talking to for the last few weeks and that you kind of developed this nice kind of back and forth with doesn't believe in God and thinks it's all bullshit. So,
That's cool.
it's a nice. Yeah.
So they you give them a chance to fall in love with you,
Yeah,
or like
exactly.
you,
Mm-hmm.
and then so when you do drop it, so you don't start with that.
No, I don't start with that.
Yeah, that's right. If you start with that, then they're going to have this biased image of what you are.
Yeah.
And so that's
I want them
tactical.
I want them to have the biased image of me as a human first. And,
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. So it's mind-blowing for a lot of people, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm respectful about it. I don't just
Sure.
Shove
just
it down
kinda-
their throats, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's
right?
good.
We've all experienced that, right? From
Like the other
side.
way. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
You have to be an idiot to believe.
for sure. Yeah.
Which
I
is
don't
true.
ever.
No, I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
in certain company, I'll say those kind of things, but definitely not. Try to be as respectful as possible, but also can get a little passionate. So
Yeah. Well, especially
hard
when
not
it's
to.
when it's affecting legislation in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets all up in our business. Guess what? You're going to get some pushback, and
Exactly.
well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how did you?
go ahead.
How did you and I meet? I mean, I can't even remember.
Yeah. I just joined the Nashville Atheist Facebook group,
Oh, and
and you posted
about 6 months ago or so, put out a feeler and said, "Hey, if any of you have a Christian backstory," and that's a prerequisite, really. I mean, it's not just get on here and tell me about your atheism. It's tell me about your journey out of Christianity. That's our premise. And I threw out a big net, and
Yeah.
and I caught you,
Yeah.
A fisher of men.
Yeah.
How about
Exactly.
that? Yeah.
and you said, "Hey, I'll tell my story." Well, and it sounds like you're that kind of,
Yeah.
You're,
Yeah, I'm vocal
and it's a
about
way of activism for you, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's something that it's more of a recent kick I've been on, is kind of the more activist side of stuff. So I listen to a lot of atheist podcasts and things like that.
Yeah.
So
What are some of the podcasts?
some of the podcasts, I do like Sam Harris a lot.
Did you listen to this last one where he's the one that's out now? And aren't they kind of monthly almost? Or they're
kind of the Waking Up podcast?
Yeah.
Yes. I started the most recent one, but I haven't finished that one yet.
all right. It's talking. He's interviewing a guy who I think is an Indian professor. Like he's an American, but he's he's Eastern Indian.
Yeah.
And they're talking about this problem of political correctness on college campuses and the
Right.
fragility of safe,
Safe
spaces,
and
and
stuff,
how this debate is massive, and it's very divisive even within the atheist movement. Like
Sure.
you have people, there's really critical of SJW, social justice warriors. You have on the other end is saying, toughen up, and
Yeah.
I
GLBT too.
what is that?
Gay folks.
Oh,
Yeah.
LGBT.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I felt like one thing that I've noticed about everybody who's really critical of either Black Lives Matter or like the fragility of PC, try to tiptoe around the language so you don't offend someone.
Right.
I'm sorry, but it's about 99% white male, and that's my problem with it. I get it because I'm a white male, and I've said it on this show. There's been a couple of episodes where I went on a rant about you need to get tough skin. This baby's, I've went there. And so everybody already knows that I err on the side of that. But when I began to notice was literally from Dave Rubin, or not Dave Rubin, is it Dave Rubin? Anyway, there's some voices out there that are very critical of this fragility and stuff. Sam Harris being one of them.
yeah.
Yeah,
Gets a lot of
University of
pushback on
Chicago.
that.
Very much so.
And I'm telling you, I have yet to see a woman or a person of color come out as, it's almost 99% white male.
White males saying
That we
there
need
should
to
be-
get tough skin, that we need to toughen up.
Right.
And that this fragility. So it's a very real issue.
Yeah.
And just like any real issue, both sides have a point.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we need to listen to both sides.
See, I'm
Anyway.
a big First Amendment guy. It's like, yeah, whatever.
Sure.
Whatever
Yeah.
you want to say it.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right.
it's
I am
just-
too.
Just
But you're a
speech.
white male.
Yeah,
That's my
exactly.
point.
Okay.
Yeah, we do kind of come from a position of privilege a little
Absolutely.
bit. Yeah.
All right, so here's a story I got to tell you. I'm sorry to derail
no,
this for
you're
a second,
good.
but we're on a. I just literally had this thought last night, and we talk about privilege and blind spots. I was in a class at Vanderbilt in divinity, and these are very progressive people, and it's divinity, so they're religious in some sort, but for the most part, it's a very
They're
progressive,
thinking people.
and very liberal. There's a lot of people of color, a lot of LGBT people. You wouldn't think that in a seminary, but in Vanderbilt, it's definitely true. And actually, white straight male, I was the minority by far, and they let me know.
Wow, that's surprising.
Seriously, it was a weird feeling. And this is one of those cases where I said something, and I had no idea that it was offensive, and yet there were several people in the room that just gasped.
Really?
Wow.
Wow.
And reacted extreme, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I got into this. We kind of went into these discussions in the class, and it's a seminar, so it's not a lecture. It's everybody sitting around a table talking, and just in referencing this person that one of the people that we were in discussion with was a woman, and I think at the time I was 45 or 47 or something. And all of these are young people. I'm the oldest guy in the room, maybe even older than the professor. I can't remember. And so that was kind of part of my thinking, but this is the blind spot. And I made, in referencing her, I quarantined off with commas, hun, H-O-N.
Oh, saying hun?
Yeah. So I said, well, hun, it's not,
Oops.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, boy.
See, there's your reaction. I mean, it's like, and there was a gay man in the room, gay young man in the room that just went ape shit.
It's okay if you're, middle-aged female cracker barrel waitress to say hun, but
There you go.
much, yeah.
That's a good point. So,
depends on where you come from, for sure.
but it was condescending.
yeah.
And it was patriarchal.
It's all about perception.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
you
yet
you didn't think so.
and
though,
yet
of course.
I
Sure.
had
You meant nothing by it.
I meant nothing by it, and I have no disrespect for that person.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
Like,
all
so it's a
perspective.
complete blind spot for me. And that's where I began to get suspicious of white straight males and how we don't get it.
Yeah.
And so our platform and our stump speech about college students need to get tougher or whatever, yes, and
yeah.
there's big spots where you don't understand what they're trying to say.
Well, all the more reason then to say, hey,
Let them say it.
jerk off. Don't say hun. What's wrong with you? Can't you see that that's a blind spot? You know what I mean? You could,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could stand
And
up
actually,
and
I
speak.
would have appreciated that, Bob.
Yeah.
And
Let's hear that.
instead,
Yeah, people get all mad.
It
the
just became
emotional
passive aggressive.
Yeah.
The whole room
okay.
became passive aggressive towards me, and I left the room not knowing. I left the room still ignorant.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's
And it should have been a
Doesn't
moment
help
of,
anyone.
enlightenment for me.
Yeah, sure.
It could have been a pedagogical moment for them to teach me.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Well, you got to feel like you can stand up and say it. I mean, that's what the First Amendment.
but maybe their own fragility, or the way they handle language, or their desire to never offend anyone kept them from teaching me.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, what else would keep them from saying, "Okay, time out. We know you're a good person, Cass, old man, but you just what you just said was highly offensive, and here's why, and you don't even know it." And I would have thanked them.
Sure.
Because I left there still as ignorant as I walked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
good
It's
point.
an open dialogue. It's important.
It is
You know, to
important.
have-
So back to Tim's journey. So you're Jackson, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Your parents religious?
Yes, they are Southern Baptists. We went to a big church. I don't mind mentioning Inglewood Baptist Church in Jackson, Tennessee. So I think it might be the second or third
Gee,
largest.
how many members?
Oh gosh,
Hundreds,
I don't know now.
thousands?
Yeah, definitely thousands.
Whoa.
It grew. I mean, it grew a ton. They built a new sanctuary. Built a new.
You say
youth
you were
building,
starting to
all
say
of
that
that
one of the
stuff.
biggest in Jackson?
Yeah, one of the biggest in Jackson.
Yeah, just in Jackson.
Yeah.
Brothers and sisters?
Yeah, one little sister. She's, I mean, not super religious, I guess. I'm sure she believes in God, pays lip service, that kind of stuff. I don't think they go to church, but, you know.
They, meaning she's married?
Yeah, she's married.
How old are you?
I am 31.
Okay.
Yep.
Your parents know you're out?
Well, so here's the
Let's
thing.
talk about that.
Here's
Yeah.
the thing. They're probably the only bubble that doesn't.
Okay.
You know, and they probably do know. I don't make any secret. Anytime like a church and state issue comes up, I jump on that. Like their church recently had some like public help with one of their Easter things, and I was like, well, you know, what's that about? Like, why is the government doing anything helping any kind of anything? Like, that's ridiculous.
So they gave him money for some
Yeah,
Easter?
it was something. It was like they let them use land or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was like actual. I'm sure there was some loophole that they used, but you know, that's the kind of place Jackson is if you've been through there. But yeah, church on every corner and all that. But yeah, Southern Baptist. Grew up, you know, pretty much fully indoctrinated as a kid. I got saved, you know, baptized and all that at 6 years old. I think it was after some service saying, you know, what'll happen if you die tomorrow?
Sure.
Are you going to go to, you know, that sort of fear that they instill in you as a small child.
Yeah, and all these
You're gonna-
adults are saying it.
Everyone around you says it. So
Yeah.
what possible? And the media that they give you, like you should watch videos and stuff.
You ever
and
see a
things
chick
like that.
track?
Oh yeah. I can find them in like public bathrooms and stuff like that.
there's
Everywhere. I used to collect them because they're just ridiculous.
I do too. I collect them and throw them
Absolutely
away.
ridiculous.
So there's a bus bench, like, you know, on the corner of Sarrett and 21st, right where I go to Vanderbilt. And there's somebody who leaves them there, like on the bus bench, or, you know, on a table there at Brugger's all the time. Like it's almost a daily. Well, I shouldn't say daily, but weekly. I'll see one and I'll pick it up and throw it away.
You ever seen those fake $20 bills
Yep.
or $5 bills?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you
And
reach
they're on
down
the
to
back.
It's folded in half, and it's like not a full length.
Right.
You reach down to
bill.
pick it up, thinking that you found a 20, and it's a
track.
a gospel
Way
track.
to be let down, just like the common theme within religion, if
Yeah.
you really look at it.
Yeah.
And I don't know
Let
that
down
the-
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This may not be a thing, but there was somebody posted a picture of somebody left it as a tip for a waitress.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
That's the lowest.
What
of
I
low.
remember is going out. I used to play Dixie Youth baseball. I played right field because I was very talented.
Yes, of course.
I just wanted to go home and play video games. But I was going out to right field and you know, to just stand there pretty much, and saw this $20 bill. Oh man, I'm like, you know, 12 years old. So I look at it, I'm like, yes. Oh shit. A Bible verse. I've been hearing this my whole life. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. So at 6, you accepted Christ in fear of hell. I mean, at any point, did it ever become something that was yours personally?
I think I tried to make it that. I always felt that I was not, because I always had doubts. Like, you know, the first things I remember questioning were, you know, which I think most kids question this, at least I hope, if God created everything, who created God? Like, who's God's mom? And there's no answer. It's like, well, he just always existed.
Yeah.
And then I just started seeing like all these things, like nothing has a real answer.
Did it ever? One of the things that comes up is, what about the Chinese? What about third world countries that don't have the gospel?
Yeah. What about
they're going to hell just because they didn't get a messenger?
Yeah, sure. Because they would talk about missionaries and stuff. And I'm like, well, what about the people that the missionaries don't reach? Or what about reading the Bible? I'm like, well, what about the people before Jesus? And it just
lots of holes.
Falls apart. It just falls apart. It's just
House
ridiculous.
of
Cards. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I tried to have that, and I had a lot of guilt, with not really feeling a full on like personal relationship, because I just couldn't. It just didn't make enough sense.
It's one thing to fall in love with somebody that you feel loved by. Mm-hmm. It's another to try to love somebody that's holding over you a threat.
Yeah, you're coerced too.
Yeah,
it's an offer you can't refuse.
So unless you either have a good image of God and you fall in love with that, or you have Stockholm syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
You feel you're trapped, and all right, let's make the best of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like if you...
I had a good image of God and fell in love with that, so I don't know about the Stockholm syndrome. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely attempted to have that, and I feel like at some point I probably did a little bit have some kind of relationship.
Well,
just because
pray?
we have everyone... I did pray. Yeah, I would pray for,
in bed
help
at night,
on my tests, or I would just pray and try to, because you're told to pray. You're told to constantly be in a state of prayer. So I would do my best, really. And when I wasn't getting the kind of return, or wasn't really feeling, I would feel warm fuzzies and stuff like that, but it was mainly just in church service. It was when, like, it's mass hysteria.
Yeah.
It was, people speaking in tongues and stuff. Not that they did that at my church, but it's just, I could never fully get it. And I never had those revelation experiences that I would hear about. And, a lot of people, I don't think that they actually did either. I'm sure some people did.
But people get up and give testimonies.
Oh, yeah.
God did this. God healed me of this. Or, I was...
Yeah, I remember kids my age doing that. And I would be sitting in the congregation like, well, where's mine? Why isn't God talking to me like that? I'm like, they're saying he's telling them things.
So
like,
you
I never heard voices.
You never, well, we get the voices thing, but you never personally witnessed a miracle of any sort.
No,
to where,
not
at least to you.
Yeah,
I know for some, when I was a kid, I used to have this Matchbox racetrack. Matchbox don't have motors.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They're just, but there was this little wheelhouse with two rubber wheels that
spit the car out.
Spit the car out. Like track, go all the way around, and it's losing momentum until it hits the wheelhouse again, and then it takes off. And I think there were events and testimonies and things that just about the time that those doubts and questions are really starting to get the best of your faith, I think that's the power of testimony. Why preachers do it is parade somebody up that says, God,
That's
and so it's
true.
this wheelhouse that just re-energizes you to be able to go another 6 months of faith. Yeah.
That's when they have revivals.
Yeah.
And that's
keep it going.
Because I rededicated a couple times,
Absolutely.
And it was always coinciding with a revival or going on a youth trip or something like that. Something where you're kind of sectioned away and you're kind of like just immersed in it.
Yeah.
And everyone around you has that same energy and stuff.
Yeah. So what age did you pretty much put a fork in it?
Probably when I was actually able to kind of really fully develop that independence, probably around 16 when I could drive. And I just stopped. I stopped going.
Yeah.
I remember my mom, she kind of hit her pretty hard because she, I remember for a while there, she would come into my room every morning and read a Bible verse to me.
Wow.
Before school.
Before school. No teenage boy wants to be awoken at God,
by any text, let alone
not a text. She would come into my room and I
don't mean a digital text.
Okay.
By any book. If she came in and read Moby Dick, it'd piss you
get
off.
Out of here, Mom! Like,
so in a way, that's kind of a bad taste. I mean, that was a bad tactic.
It really was a bad tactic, and it was doubly a bad tactic because I had read the Bible before then, and that was part of my deconversion. Yeah. I don't think if and it was something that my parents instilled in me. They provided tons of books. We had encyclopedias. They got zoo books for me, which are nice for learning about animals and stuff, which is another big,
led to your interest
that threw a big wrench in it too.
in veterinarian work.
Yeah, and just biology and I had a big interest in paleontology and dinosaurs and stuff like that.
And that
which I could never reconcile. That,
with
even
creation.
As a kid.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense.
Jesus I've seen pictures that
Jesus rode a dinosaur.
rode the dinosaur.
We one time had.
Have you ever been up to the Creation Museum?
I have not been up there. I don't want to.
We haven't
I've seen videos of it. I don't want to put any money into that. We're the Ark fiasco up there, but
no, right?
Oh my goodness.
And you got any plans for Thanksgiving? Are you heading?
Yeah, I got to go home. Go home to the family and
back to
eat.
the family.
Oh yeah, I'll never miss that Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I'll put up with any kind of hand holding and prayer for that turkey and dressing.
Yeah, that's true. You've got. I mean, there will be prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And
say
I know
what you're thankful for. They do all that stuff.
Do they?
Yeah.
And I know that it's an awkward moment when we live up. My wife and I from Wisconsin, so we go back up there. We got to say the prayer and hold the hands and all that. And in that 30 seconds or whatever it takes, it really is uncomfortable.
It really, really is. It's like when you go to church.
Yeah.
You just almost can't.
It's like I can't handle when they.
All right, let's talk about that because
Thanksgiving?
We'll know just how creepy it is to be around religiosity now.
Oh, for me? Yeah. Oh, yeah, for us. You mean yes?
Well, for me too, and I lived it, loved it for years. And there's certainly beautiful aspects about it. We made some great friends, built community,
fellowship there. I mean, that's a real thing.
Made some really good music for years.
Oh,
I was a worship leader.
Yeah,
cool.
That's big for you.
I was in the worship orchestra at my church.
Really? What'd you play?
Played the tenor sax.
All right.
I played along with my dad. He played the clarinet, and because they were all adults. So
did you know that the saxophone was once called the devil's flute?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, because you can feel a little bit of rock and roll there. It could be moving you.
A bit of rock and roll, a little bit of the devil's plant back then too.
That's right. But anyway, so you play the saxophone.
No, but I want to talk about the uncomfortableness because there's Bob and I call it the bizarro world that we find ourselves in. It comes up a lot as far as, oh my gosh. I mean, just even watching the other night, I was watching the Alfred Smith dinner with the Catholics and stuff, and both candidates are there. And this whole time we're there's it's almost a roast of each other. There's some comedy. But it's adults. It's $6 million being raised. It's and then at the closing, one of the cardinals gets up and he thanks the candidates and he thanks the Al Smith Foundation or whatever it is and
bloviates.
And then he says, but most of all, we want to thank the Lord. And that is just so weird to hear coming out of an adult mouth.
Yeah, it really is.
It
doesn't make any sense.
I did it for the first 39 years of my life, and I've been out for about 10. And now it's like, are you kidding me?
It's like, let's thank Santa Claus for our Christmas present.
Exactly. That's how it feels.
That's exactly how.
And then, so what I get about the creepiness is, like, if I were to go to church this week, well, today's Sunday morning, there's people in church as we speak. If I were to be sitting there, I would be completely creeped out in the sense that I'm in a room and zombies is a strong word, but I'd be looking around going,
like people,
almost a George Orwell creepiness of cult and blind following, and I'd feel alone. I would feel like, does anybody else wonder what the fuck we're doing here?
Yeah, it is crazy.
That's how estranged I've become from it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? When we would go, we have to go back to Wisconsin, and we have to go to church.
It's the same with these circle prayers.
Yeah, because it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, so we go because it's Pacify's mom and mother-in-law and what have you, and when they pull out that. I just can't. When they pull out that song, "Washed in the Blood of the Lamb," I go, oh my God,
Yeah. Blood sacrifice.
It's a Stephen King song.
How could
Carrie
wash the blood of the lamb?
They dumped pig blood on her at the prom.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That's pretty much the closest picture that we have in reality of what that's like to be washed in the blood of the lamb.
I get it. First century, weird, crazy kind of thought,
well, it's metaphor. That's all it is.
It's metaphor?
Yeah, it's a scapegoat metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the Passover metaphor.
Yeah, it's still creepy.
So Passover was the 10th plague of the Exodus.
Yeah.
Right.
And Pharaoh wouldn't let the people go. Frogs.
Right.
You know,
God,
all
that
these
whole story.
the river turns to
to
blood,
blood. Right.
which ruins it. You know, and finally the last straw, all of which God had hardened Favor's heart. So it's like it's all just
crazy. It's all his doing from the beginning.
Yeah, it's like a demonstration of power. Anyway, he hardens his heart by the 10th plague. I'm going to kill the firstborn of every family.
Right.
Not I, the angel of death.
Of course.
So that's God's distanced himself from that. We've talked about this many times.
Yeah.
And the animals too.
It's like the
all
mafia.
the animals in the field and all
Yeah,
that.
like the mafia.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Godfather lets somebody else do the hit.
Yeah.
Do the hit.
Yeah.
So
But the blood smeared on the
Yeah.
doorpost indicated to the angel of death to pass over.
right.
And so when you're washed, your sin is washed away. The wages of sin is death. So you're saved from eternal death, and you're given the gift of eternal life by way of the blood smearing, metaphor.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Let's use this to inform our public policy here in 2016.
That's right.
Come on now.
Let's write a
Blood
law.
sacrifice
Come on now.
from thousands of years ago.
Come on now, guys.
Great idea.
Let's aim a little higher. Let's think a little deeper. Let's grow up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have to be. Yeah.
It's what it feels like, that you want to just walk. All right, so when we have on the local level, I've been helping Gail Jordan with her campaign. And
I listened to that episode.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I listened to her kind of as a debate, but it was basically an open forum call-in show with WGNS, where her and Jim Tracy kind of went at it. And I think on this local level, like in Jackson, Tennessee, or at Murfreesboro or whatever, I think I can understand. Well, there's some backwoods thinking, and there's some what do we call knuckle draggers, mouth breathers. I don't know, all these really derogatory references to the basket of deplorables. But when Mike Pence at the national level,
That video where he's talking about evolution and those same old arguments that they like Rush Limbaugh and all those people talk about. Well, there's
you know what I'm saying? It's like I
monkeys
I have a little grace for these little Tennessee towns. I'm like, okay, it's no surprise that there's some dumbasses here.
Yeah, sure.
But man, at the federal level, it's hard to stomach. It's hard to watch.
You would hope that the federal level would have those kind of checks and balances against that kind of thing,
Yeah.
so they could look down at the
It's not a religious
local
test.
level. Yeah, and
But it
just
is
be
an
like, hey,
IQ test of some
Right,
sort,
exactly.
or at least an honest test. Are you honest with science? Are you honest with when you're presented with facts? How do you respond? That ought to be a test for running for office.
Do you know what a theory is? In
Versus-
scientific term.
Yeah. So facepalm over and over
And
again.
People don't, because they don't understand the
They don't
word.
what?
They don't understand the word theory.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I almost
They-
wish it was a different word.
Yeah, they think
honestly.
theory is like, well, my theory is, it's going to be a rainy day tomorrow,
Yeah,
or whatever.
like
it's
a
not
guess.
like a guess.
No.
I mean, it truly is a pillar of understanding science.
It's ironic as hell, because the very reason that science chose to use that word is their openness to being wrong.
and their humbleness about
It's
it.
a humble position
Yes,
to
it
say,
is.
all right, we're going to throw this out, and it's the standing theory,
Currently.
and it's if something comes along and disproves it,
It's out.
what is it when it's
Yeah, you can amend it, amendable.
yeah,
or-
it's this can be overthrown.
Yeah.
And so that's why we leave this gentle term there. But people come along, religious and whatever people come along and say, well, it's just a theory.
Yeah, it's
Like gravity's a theory. by
yeah,
the way.
yeah, absolutely. Gravity
Tomorrow
is
I'm going to float away.
right. It just baffles my mind.
Well,
Yeah,
and
it's so
I
frustrating.
appreciate that gravity is just a theory, because it actually could be proven to be at least something that we misunderstood for the last X
You
amount
know,
of
and
years.
you could argue that Einstein kind of said, yeah, we did misunderstand it for a while.
Yeah.
You know, because
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
not, it's
Yeah.
not sucking down, it's pushing down on us, Einstein said.
Yeah.
So,
And we still don't have a full unified theory.
Yeah,
we
something
still
could
don't
come
have that.
along
It's
and
a
it could
big
totally
mystery.
subvert that.
It's
Yeah.
a big mystery.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
Which is
it's God
fine.
in there in those gaps. So.
isn't that great that we have mysteries?
That's the problem, is the God of the gaps. I ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm atheist to the core. We name the show Agnosticism because I don't want to fill in those gaps. I want people to say we don't know,
Yeah.
and leave it at that. In those places,
Sure.
wherein
Yeah, we
there
don't know,
are-
but we should try to figure out.
Yeah.
You know,
Keep-
we don't
Yeah.
know until we do know.
Yeah, because when you feel it, you've arrived. Like your impetus to keep looking is pacified by
And
the
pieces of God keep breaking off. Yeah. He becomes less and less and less and then the fear is he's going to be gone. Well, he's not going to be. He's never been there.
He's never been there. But you're right. That's the fear of the theist. The theist fears that science is going to squeeze God out, and he will
completely,
or it will.
Yeah, I think eventually, sure.
Yeah, you have to come up with all our apologists and all that kind of stuff.
Are you married?
Too. Yes, I am.
How long?
Been married for about 2 years now.
Cool. Oh. Where'd you meet her?
Actually,
or him, I should say.
It's her.
I don't want to presume.
Yeah, thanks. We met we're both from West Tennessee, so kind of
met at college, or
we were kind of in the same circles. We went to the same college. She reached out to me on Facebook one day.
Oh, wow!
Like, hey,
how cool
let's hang out and come to my birthday party and.
You have any children?
That's history. No children. No plans.
Are you going to?
Nah.
Not in a hurry?
No hurry.
Is she a religious person? Or?
No, she's not. We
wouldn't
be together. Yeah, if she wasn't. Because, we were both atheists independently before we met, so there was no need to commonly deconvert together, or that's actually been a point of bonding for us. So
you're part of the giant statistical message that we're getting from the Pew Research and other companies, that the millennials are not that you're.
You feel that way about your peers? Is that it's a
moving away? From, I think for the most part, I think most of the people that I have met, like most of my peers, if they do say they believe in God, it's more of just like an insurance policy for them, like Pascal's wager type thing. So they don't give it a second thought. They don't go to church. The few that do. They just, I see Facebook stuff on anti-abortion and crap like that. So,
it's a non-issue for a lot of people.
It is.
In that they're not excited about atheism, they're not excited about theism. Right. They're just trying to get by.
How it should be. You shouldn't need to be excited about not believing in something.
There you go.
It's like
that's a good one. That's the pull quote right there.
That's right.
Yeah, I suppose so. So it fascinates me at work. You say, you'd be a nice guy and people get to know you and like you, and what's not to like. You're a wonderful fellow.
And when the timing is right.
And then you get in there. What type of argument or discussion do you have then with folks? Do they bring it up first, or do you bring it up? Or?
Is it ever a deal breaker?
Yeah.
It's never been a deal breaker for me personally.
Yet.
Yeah. There have been a couple dates I've been on actually where it kind of was.
Dates? Like
dates.
when you were dating before you?
Yeah, before I was married. Yeah.
Oh.
Where I just brought, because that's something that I have always wanted to get out there. Like I'm not gonna waste a bunch of time and find out that you're like, Pentecostal speaking in tongues on Sunday morning. Like stuff like that. So I've gotten some looks from that, and when I used to date. Fortunately, I don't have to do that anymore.
That's good.
It's never really been an issue at work. I have had pretty good
Does it just come up in conversation where they say, when have you been saved? Or whatever? Do they do
unfortunately and unfortunately, but with the political climate lately, that's a daily topic for conversation. And the office I work in is fairly progressive people, so there aren't a lot of Trump supporters there, so we can kind of, poke fun at him and stuff like that. And then it's not a far jump to go into religion from politics. They're both kind of traditionally taboo to talk about in public.
Sure.
So why, if you're already one foot in, why not go the other? But I had an interesting conversation the other day with a coworker where it was a neat kind of evolution of the conversation. Started off, we were getting a new insurance policy. And so we were just kind of talking about how crappy insurance companies are and how they're kind of pushing us to go to this one with a higher deductible and all this stuff. And you can just, think a little bit and you can see right through it. And then somehow it got into the topic of artificial intelligence, which is pretty interesting to think about.
Yeah, sure.
And then I took the position that, once, we're on this trajectory and we do eventually create an intelligence or a super intelligence or something like that, that from its own processes arises something that we could equate to like a soul or something like that. And that would be wonderful evidence that there is no real soul, that it's not something that is God-given. It's something that just arises from information. It's a logical conclusion for that kind of thought.
Notion. A notion comes from the Greeks.
Yeah. So we were talking about that, and it turns out he, because he had also talked, he was kind of right along with me in this conversation. And then he was like, well, I'm kind of with you on a lot of that stuff, but I do still believe in God. And he told me he had gone to Christian ministry school. But he came out of that more kind of leaning towards the kind of like not towards atheism, but more towards agnosticism. So, that's a kind of conversation that I would have at work. That was one of the more interesting ones, but just to the climate at that place, it's been pretty conducive to that kind of.
So there's not like little grandmas or anybody going, and have you been saved?
Not really.
When was it? What church do you go to? I get that all the time. What church do you go to?
Yeah, I've been asked what church I go to.
Yeah.
I just say,
and that's talk about hegemony. That's the power of hegemony.
Yeah. Fortunately, in that office, it's mostly young people, and a lot of young people nowadays.
Yeah. Are thinking.
Fortunately, I think the internet's part of that, a big part of it. But you can also get in your echo chambers too. And
very true.
What's your wife do for a living?
She actually works at Department of Children's Services.
Okay.
She has a master's in history, public history. So this is not like her desired field. She doesn't have a social work degree. So she'd like to work at a museum. Obviously, child abuse hotline's not a very fun place to have to hear a bunch of stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a Frist. There's a few museums around. But
yeah.
That'd be awesome if she can get in there.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you're part of the Facebook Nashville Atheist things. That's how we met. What do you and your wife do for community, or do you go to Sunday Assembly?
We haven't been. We've considered going to Sunday Assembly.
It's fun.
Yeah, I'd like to check it out for sure. We just haven't. We're not super
social.
We're not super social.
Not in a bowling league.
Not in a bowling league. No, I like bowling. My wife's not a big bowling fan. But,
what do you guys do for fun?
I would like to watch TV. There's a lot. There's a lot of good.
There
really is, man.
There's so much.
It's amazing.
Been watching Shameless, which is a good one.
My daughter is completely hooked to that.
Oh man,
that's a great show.
Yeah, we are really hooked, and of course, like Breaking Bad, Stranger Things.
I went back and did that recently. The Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad. Yeah, I watched it twice.
Really?
Yeah.
So going back to you said Stranger Things. That was one, but going back to Shameless.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are the messages, or what are if there is a message? I mean, how does it make you feel?
That one's a really interesting one because it makes you reflect a lot.
Exactly.
The message for me is be nice to each other. Don't be assholes. I think that's a good mantra for any kind of.
Exactly though, but if somebody were to watch an episode of that, maybe just one episode, and then hear that Tim got be nice to one another out of that, then they would say, wow, I don't know, sometimes, but I love having watched something, whether it's one episode or 20, and then introspecting or reflecting on how did that make me feel. And obviously if it makes me feel bad or gives me nightmares or makes me hate life or makes me anxious, I don't watch it. But ironically, some of these shows because this show is about an alcoholic father and an extremely dysfunctional family.
Yes.
Just shockingly dysfunctional. And so at face value, the content should be depressing. And yet, something goes on in the human psyche. Maybe it's compare and contrast or conflating your own life against that, and you come out looking really good. I don't know, but I love this, what drama does to the human psyche and stuff. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, and these days you can do anything on television. There was a time when...
Well, the budgets are something.
I know.
They're movie budgets, but they're for television shows.
Yeah, it's amazing. There was a show, I don't know if you ever watched it, called 6 Feet Under on HBO. Among the most brilliant shows on and it's all about a funeral home and death. Yeah. And you'd go, well, how is that going to be interesting?
Oh, yeah, it is. And it's a heavy one, too.
Fascinating. Just great stuff. See that if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Yeah.
HBO has a lot of good stuff on there.
They do.
I have HBO Go, and I do Bill Maher. And
Yeah.
We got to see him. He came a couple years ago to TPAC.
Dude, every time he comes, I just don't have the money for the tickets. Yeah. But what I've heard him say is he loves going to the South. Honestly, because you'd think that
better be careful around here. We got guns.
Well, and the assumption is that how does he sell tickets in the South? But what he discovers is that they come out of the woodwork and they unify, at least for that 2 hours to go. I mean, like we're all in the same room,
right? And
because we're a minority in our social context, this feels good. And he loves doing that, going around to counties where it's the minority, they're blue states or whatever,
right?
And or is it
red states?
Red states. I'm sorry. and kind of encouraging these people to stick to it. Almost like a sermon.
That's
like
good.
a
Right.
well, not an iterant. What do you call it? Itinerant.
Yeah.
Pastor. Go around the
It's
country
good to have that kind
having
of
a little
support,
tent revival for the progressives in that county.
Yeah, I guess
don't
so.
know.
I guess so. I don't know.
He's Mark Maron's coming in, and I'm a big Mark Maron fan. But
I like Mark Maron. That's a great podcast.
yeah, I never miss.
Yeah,
I never miss, and it's
I'm
twice
just
a
amazed
week.
at people he gets on there. He had
Well, had the
Obama
president
on there.
on.
one
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Well, yeah, once you get the president, on,
that's-
I don't know what you can do with
That's
it.
the
About
top.
name dropping. Right.
no, but he just has a way about him that is
Yeah.
really fascinating. And
Yeah, he is good.
so, how about any heroes in your life or teachers that influenced you, or that
Teachers.
somebody that you would look back on and say that person touched me in a way that changed my life, almost a butterfly effect, like I was never the same after meeting them or something.
Yeah, I had a couple science teachers. I wouldn't say that there's one person,
Sure.
but just a couple of just people that have been passionate about like science and things like that.
And that was
Have been-
contagious.
Yeah, yeah, it really was.
It
Because
is
the
exciting.
evidence is so compelling. When you go from having just a fairy tale structure around you to having actual demonstrable like testable things you can look into and like explain. I mean, it's an amazing feeling to first realize that. So
Yeah, you're starting to get your handle on things.
And it's wondrous. I mean, it truly does, make wonderful in the best sense.
Absolutely.
It's full of wonder, and you think, my God. I mean, it is almost like religion, kind of.
It's much more meaningful to me than
it raises
any kind of
you
religion.
way up. And you
Yeah.
think, Mike, or how small I am, and look at all this, and how did this happen, and
Yeah.
those kind of things.
It's awe-striking,
yeah,
for sure.
It is.
and the gratitude you have for it.
And that we're all a part of it too.
Yeah,
Like,
that
so-
interconnected web of things. Yeah, I've noticed that, and I mention that in class. I still teach occasionally. You twist something over here and something over here moves. And you go, what the hell? And it's like, well, because we're interconnected, man.
Yeah,
Everything's all...
It's all a system. We're all
yeah,
in a
it's in the
here.
system.
So what's the boldest thing that Tim Flynn has ever done?
Boldest thing I've ever done. Wow. That's a question.
Notwithstanding coming on this show. Of course.
Right.
This is so bold.
It probably was just like not going to church, just doing that kind of
Putting your foot down.
just because there was no one else in my family, and there still is no one else in my family that has done anything like that. So
Now, did your mom see it as rebellion and that you were going down a evil path?
I don't think she saw it like that because I have always been kind of rebellious. I think she saw it as a phase, and I moved out at 18. I'm still going to have a great relationship with my parents, but yeah,
They love you.
yeah,
They respect you.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
They are not worried about your journey.
No, I don't. I don't.
They have confidence in your decision making.
I think so.
Good for you.
I believe they do. I hope they do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I wonder about that, how your mom is going to react. At Thanksgiving, as we were talking, what's going to happen?
she's always known that I think critically. That's something that they encouraged in me. So they've been great parents. They just
Isn't that interesting?
had the wrong doctrine that they were raised with.
But they're still pretty
pretty
solid.
They're in the Christian Motorcycle Association. They both ride motorcycles.
The Christian
Yeah.
motorcycle.
That's it. You hit gold there, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great fact.
I think
Wow.
their chapter's called Steel Horse Prophets, something like that.
And they just,
They go to like bike rallies and stuff, and they set
Right.
up a tent and they like witness to people.
It's an
and
excuse
things
for
like
a
that.
community.
really?
Yeah, they probably don't do
Wow.
anything active like,
They do go to rallies and stuff, and they have like meetings and things like that. But it's not like
So does your dad like tie a bandana around his head and stuff?
yeah,
Does he
he
really?
does. He has a bandana, and they have their colors. They have.
Oh
their,
yeah, man.
Now, what
Absolutely.
our
Rock and
listeners
roll.
can't see, and although you'll provide a picture and stuff, so they will
Sure,
see. But
yeah.
your beard, long hair down to your shoulders. Is your dad long haired, or has he ever been?
He has, but
Okay.
Now it's white hair, maybe. No, he's
he has
probably
dark hair, but he's lost some.
You're
of it.
young enough to where they're young. Yeah.
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 Wow, isn't that something? So your mom rides as well, or does
Yeah,
it just?
she rides too.
She doesn't ride on the back of your dad's.
She used to, but she learned,
Oh, of
after
course.
Got her own
after
bike.
They start. Yeah, she has
got her own bike. Is it Harleys?
They do Hondas, so
Hondas.
they're like riding comfort. They have a Goldwing, which is like a big,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a car on two wheels. So it has air conditioning on it.
Has air conditioning?
Yep.
You're air conditioning the world
It's
here.
climate controlled. Yeah.
Gosh, and they have those little microphones and stuff.
I run
Yeah,
the air
microphones.
conditioner with the windows down sometimes. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
Wow. Isn't that something? Christian
They're
bikers.
into it.
I love it.
They go to church every Sunday, Wednesday. They're still.
Well, but do they
fully-
do they drink? I mean, do you have like,
Nope.
let's have a beer, man?
No, they don't
Christian
really
bike-
drink. I think my mom had a daiquiri. She bragged about having a daiquiri a couple years ago to me. So
And that was it, huh? Never
Back in 1989, she had it.
right, it's that kind of thing. Like we were on vacation,
red letter day.
Yeah,
It was a wild night.
I'll get my dad to try a beer every once in a while.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it.
Did they like your wife?
Yeah, they like.
What about her parents? Are they religious?
So they're the kind of more just pay lip service, kind of like, oh, I just want us to all be together in heaven. So why don't you just say you believe in God? Like that would.
Like,
Like that would actually work if
Yeah.
the premise were
Pascal's Virgin.
Isn't that so? I mean, it's so poignant.
like why take half measures if you're going to believe in something?
Yeah.
Like go,
yeah, just that
go
idea.
whole hog.
Just
Just go full Westboro Baptist if you're going to believe in it.
But I mean, we're
I
all
agree.
going to be together.
Yeah, I mean that's what
It's-
says it in the book.
So one of the things I used to do that piss off my Christian friends is when Westboro would make the news or whatever, I would
They're real
post.
Christians.
I'd post it on Facebook and I'd say, they are putting you to shame because they're
Preaching the
people.
Bible.
They're people of the Word. And I felt the same way about Muslims that
Yeah.
were 9/11 or whatever. It's like these are people of the Word, and the rest of you have cherry picked it, which I endorse because I think we all do it no matter
better for
what.
society to
It's better for
cherry-pick it.
society because less planes get flown into buildings and less funerals get protested. So yeah, I hate both of those things, and that's the point. I was trying to get them to hate themselves,
yeah.
or to hate
I
their
think
to
that's
hate their
important to
Christianity.
Look at that
Here's
and reflect.
exactly. I used to use those metaphors. I said like, here's a mirror.
Take a look.
This is what you would be if you
Yeah.
were actually as diligent and rigorous and devoted as Westboro.
You actually read your religious text that you're
Yeah.
basing your entire life off. Like,
Yeah.
why would you not read it? I just don't understand that. I mean,
Oh, they read it. They just selectively read it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
true.
you.
If you read it if you read it objectively, you're probably not going to come away with. At least
No.
I didn't.
No. But you've seen. I mean, like. You sit next to somebody at church and you look over at their Bible, guess what? It's all lit up with highlights.
It's true. It's highlighted. They have notes. They have. I mean,
Isn't that so?
Yeah, it's you got to parse it out.
yeah,
to
you have
know
to make
it.
excuses.
In
for
order
it to work.
to remain a moral person, you have to.
Yeah, and and what happens too is you say, well, what about this thing here about him killing the this or whatever, and they'll go, well, that's the context. You don't get the context. You don't understand it. Oh, okay. Well, then how can you say that love one another is right then?
Yeah.
Is that a context too, or is that? And some
Well,
theologians.
You're reading something right
I'm
now
reading
that
a theologian now.
who argues that was just exclusive to the Jews.
Yeah, it's Jews.
Oh, I've
it's
heard
Jewish
that. I've heard
stuff.
that.
Yeah,
Position.
that love one another was just
No.
in-house.
So once you start reading stuff like that, you think, well, wait a minute here. This is the first century.
Which you can
Things have changed in 21,
Yeah.
centuries. I think. I'd like to think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and you can proof text that because the Syrophoenician woman came up and said, "Would you heal my daughter?" or something, and he said, "I didn't come for the dogs."
Ugh,
He called her a dog. Jesus
Nasty.
did. Yeah, it's right there in
nasty
Scripture.
woman.
And but he ends up using her as an example of great faith because she pressed in and she didn't.
She kept asking.
She had
Begging.
she had tough skin. She didn't go find a safe room or safe space. She came back and she said, "But even the dogs eat the crumbs from the children's table."
Okay, let me heal you.
Yeah, that was it.
Oh,
That pushed him
wow.
over the edge. He goes, "Well, you got balls of steel."
So she changed God's mind there. In that
Yeah,
situation.
which happens a lot. And he's supposed to
Yeah,
be
it's
immutable.
supposed to be immutable, infallible. It doesn't change.
I mean, it's just too many.
Kind of contradicts itself. a little
Tim, you know
What
too
have you
much.
done?
So,
Jeez.
are you ever going to get a motorcycle yourself?
Probably not. I like riding bicycles, but not a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Kind of dangerous.
Yeah, I know those things. It just plus they look so heavy, and if you fall off them, you're like a.
Yeah.
There's no safety belt on there, is there? Not that you'd want one, I suppose. You'd want to.
I think the Goldwing does have one. My dad's actually hit a deer on his bike. And
Oh, wow.
He hasn't fallen. Like, he didn't fall when he hit the deer. So,
Wow.
yeah, that's pretty impressive. But that's because it's a car on two wheels. It's a huge thing.
It is a
So-
big one.
Well, they're making motorcycles now that balance themselves.
Oh, yeah.
BMW is.
Oh.
I saw that recently.
Really?
It sits there by itself without a kickstand.
How is it? Well, because a gyroscope or something in it, or yeah.
A self-driving motorcycle. Like they have those.
This self-driving stuff makes me
Self-driving
nervous.
motorcycles. That's funny. What a funny idea.
You do handstands on them.
So
right,
we
sure.
kind of a while back we realized you're a reader. Are you reading anything right now?
Right now, I'm kind of been in a long process of reading a book called The Disaster Artist. It's about this amazing movie called The Room.
Oh, The Room.
Yeah.
The recent movie.
I think that's
Not
called
that
just Room or something.
Okay.
This is The Room. It's a terrible movie. It's
Okay.
like awful movie that has like a cult kind of following thing. And it's like the book written by one of the actors in the movie. But it's something I had just been meaning to read.
So wait, if it's awful, why are you into it?
Oh, because it's hilarious. It's really, really funny. You know, like how people do like Rocker Horror Picture Show.
Oh,
and stuff
okay.
like
That kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
see. It's ironic. It's almost.
Oh
like,
yeah. I would very much recommend that you watch it. It's really
The Room.
The Room. Yeah.
And the book that you're reading is...
Yeah, it's called the Disaster Artist. It's about the making
And they're
of-
related.
Yeah, it's about the making of the movie. And
So the
just
book's
this guy is just-
nonfiction, but the movie is fiction.
right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Rocky
Yeah,
Horror Picture
love
Show.
that kind of
those,
stuff.
Those kind of bad movies that are so bad,
Yeah.
you just
And
laugh at them. They're so
and it's
funny.
interesting, like the process on how that kind of thing, like how that perfect storm of a hilarious bad movie happens. And
Yeah.
that's what the book's about.
Oh, interesting.
How does money and a really bad script and bad acting
Yeah, but
intersect?
there's so much more though for it to capture the zeitgeist. That's a
yeah.
phenomenon.
Yeah, it
because
really is.
that kind of shit can go down and nobody ever sees it. But for it to catch on in spite of itself,
Yeah.
that's a phenomenon.
Yeah.
To be that bad.
And it is a phenomenon. It's like all over. Like you know, it's a nationwide, probably worldwide thing where
With this particular movie.
with this movie,
Yeah.
there's like public screenings and stuff. And, yeah, just like Rocky Horror.
I got to check it out.
Yeah,
I know, right?
do it.
Well, thanks for
Yeah.
coming on, Tim.
Yeah,
I
it's been great.
Enjoyed hearing your
Yeah, I
story.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think the takeaway for listeners would be, for one thing, you're chill.
Yeah.
You're comfortable in your own skin. You're comfortable with not having faith, and you have been for so long that it's just literally, if there were an EKG attached to your spiritual anxiety, it would be flatlined.
No, yeah. I'm not worried about
Yeah.
anything like that. No pill, nothing.
And that's kind of a foreign thing for people that really bought in, like myself. And bottom falls out, the world just crashes before your eyes, and what the hell do we do now, and how should we live? There's a lot that goes on, and you really not only didn't go through much of that, maybe a little bit in your teens, as far as like I don't think but once for the last 20
Yeah.
15 years you've just been
Sure.
really and as a naturalist, knowing that your life is bookended by unconsciousness, you just seem comfortable with the meaninglessness of life.
Yeah.
And-
I mean, it's important just to make good connections with the people around you and just be a positive influence.
That's the meaning.
And that's the meaning of life. To
It's
me.
subjective.
Yeah.
There is no extant meaning.
Yeah, just not, don't add to the negativity of the world and just try to
I wonder too.
try to be
Tim,
good.
You are a hippie.
Yeah, really.
I guess that way.
But it also makes me wonder how many Tim Flynns are there out there? I hope there's a lot of you.
I hope so, too.
Me too. I'm really serious. I mean, I hope there's more people.
Especially in this emerging generation.
Yeah, pulling away and wondering and thinking and what have you. So
You remind me of my children, and 24 and down to 19. So they're younger than you, but kind of millennials,
Yeah.
and they're chill about this stuff. And
Excellent.
And it is a beautiful thing to watch,
yeah.
because in contrast to the angst that religion has caused in so many hearts and minds historically up to this point, but hopefully we're on our way out, at least from the toxic effects of religion.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this election may. By the time this airs, we'll have a new president.
Well, this is a big zit.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, no, it's coming to
it's coming to a head.
It showed up in such ugly forms this year.
Yeah.
Religiosity and like the need to be right and the need to be superior, all this angst.
Yeah.
and we haven't seen the end of it, because when he loses, it's going to get.
Oh, there's going to be some raw nerves out there.
Yeah.
There's going to
Yeah,
be some backlash.
that's for
and-
sure. But it really does feel like it's the last gasp or
Yeah.
grasp of the white hegemony, white male hegemony.
Hopefully,
anyway,
hopefully the death throes.
Yeah, like it's not going to go quietly though. That's
Yeah.
for
No,
sure. Yeah.
no.
What a pleasure to talk to you, Tim. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's
Thanks,
been great.
man.
Thanks a lot.
So that's our talk with Tim Flynn, and super guy. We sat on the porch and talked for a little bit after the taping, and man, I just am envious of guys like that. They're just so fucking chill. And I kind of look, as I age, I'm looking forward to the day when I don't give a damn about this God stuff anymore. And fortunately, Tim just totally bypassed all this anxiety that has almost defined my life. And it's a bit refreshing, to be honest with you, to talk with somebody like Tim. And just a super guy. Appreciate him coming on, sharing his story. So I want to plug next week's show and maybe give you a heads up to be able to watch this documentary. It's called The Brainwashing of My Dad. It's about an hour and a half, and it's a really well done, well put together documentary by Jen Senko. And she is our guest next week. And we talk about, of course, the making of the show and all that went into it. And I think it's poignant, or at least relevant, to the election. I hope that some of you were able to hear my little 30-minute monologue on Trump post-election and the shock and horror of what it means to be an America under the presidency of what Sam Harris calls the biggest clown ever, and what Mark Maron calls the biggest con of all time. There's no doubt that the American public was conned. I don't think Trump wants to be president. I don't think that he's going to enjoy having to grow up, or if he's even able to grow up is yet to be seen. Anyway, but I think this documentary captures, by going back through history, recent history, 30-year or more history, 40, and talks about what it took for us to get to a place where a Trump presidency was even a thing. I'm going to read a little bit from the website. As filmmaker Jen Senko tries to understand the transformation of her father from a non-political lifelong Democrat to an angry right-wing fanatic, she uncovers the forces behind the media that changed him completely. A plan by Roger Ailes under Nixon for a media takeover by the GOP. The Powell Memo, urging business leaders to influence institutions of public opinion, especially the universities, the media, and the courts. And under Reagan, the dismantling of the Fairness Doctrine. As her journey continues, we discover that her father is a part of a much broader demographic, and that the story is one that affects us all. And I would add, especially now, in the era of President Trump. 2 words I never thought I would ever say. Back to the quote here. Through interviews with media luminaries, cognitive linguists, grassroots activist groups such as Noam Chomsky, Steve Randall, Jeff Cohen, Eric Boehlert, George Lakoff, Stop Rush, Hear Yourself Think, Claire Connor, and others, this documentary unveils the plan to shift the country to the right over the last 30 years, largely through media manipulation. The result has led to fewer voices, less diversity of opinion, massive intellectual misinformation, and greater division of our country. This documentary will shine a light on how it happened and is still happening, and lead to questions about who owns the airwaves, what rights we have as listeners/watchers, and what responsibility does our government have to keep the airwaves truly fair, accurate, and accountable to the truth. So that's going to be our show next week. So obviously I want you to listen to our show, but I think you'll get more out of it if you will have seen the documentary beforehand. So if you can, I don't know, it's probably $5 or $6 or $10, but give yourself an education and go watch The Brainwashing of My Dad. And you can do that at thebrainwashingofmydad.com. All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Love you. Bye-bye.